Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I have a fascinating guest with me today, and he's got a topic that I think a lot of us can really relate to. His name is Ryan Peebles, Dr. Ryan Peebles. He is a doctor of physical therapy and creator of Core Balance Training, a unique movement retraining program which permanently reverses the root causes of back pain. He now helps thousands of back pain sufferers every year to get back to the activities they want to do and love to do while living a pain-free life. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You have, as I told you earlier, you have a really great story and terrible story at the same time. And it is a story that I could really relate to because I went through a similar situation of having chronic, irreversible, incapacitating back pain for 2.5 years. At the time, I was in my mid-30s, and I had to figure out natural ways to kind of heal it because the medical community was actually making me worse rather than better. You have a similar situation, but your back pain started at an incredibly young age.
Yeah. It started at about 16, 17. I honestly don't remember my exact age, but I remember I was a junior in high school. I was
Hmm.
actually, it was summer camp of basketball camp, so for
Hmm.
junior year. So I probably was 16. And yeah, it spiraled from there for the next about 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, was there, as we say in the medical field, if you could remember, was there a mechanism of injury that you could remember? Was there a specific incident? Was it an insidious onset? Did you wake up one morning and go, "Oh my God, my back is killing me"?
Yeah, so that I really like this question. So I'm going to answer it the way that I experienced it,
Hmm.
and then we can go from there. So, yes, there was a moment that I remember my back starting to hurt, and that was at the summer camp, basketball camp. My coach asked me to move a cooler. I was one of the bigger, stronger guys on the team, so it was a big team cooler. So naturally, he asked me, and for some reason, I thought it was an empty cooler, and I don't know why. I just thought that, but why the heck would he be asking me to move it, right? So anyway, I lifted it thinking just casually it was an empty cooler, and it was full of ice and drinks, and you could imagine one of those big Yetis before Yetis were invented. And yeah, I just felt like a little tugging, like almost like I want to say pop or snap, like when you pull a muscle type feeling in your
Hmm.
back. And it was just concerning, but didn't really like floor me or anything. But then later at practice, maybe an hour or two later, it started to kind of seize up, tighten up, and I was on the floor. I was on the, I just had to lay on the basketball court, nice and cold, firm surface. Uh, and it was out for the practice. Yeah. And so that was the beginning. And from then on, it was, you know, just like more gradual type pains. It wasn't like injury type triggers like that. It was just like it would hurt at night, when I'm watching TV, or it would hurt when I'm after I did plyometrics at basketball practice. My back would just hurt, and so that was the beginning.
Hmm.
Will say that lifting the cooler was not what actually caused my back problem. So I'll leave
Hmm.
it at that.
Well, I know we'll get into that a little bit later. But as a 16-year-old kid, that had to have been incredibly upsetting and frightening.
Yeah, I'd say that the fright didn't start right away because I didn't know what I was in for. Had I had
Right.
foresight to know what I was in for, it would have been the scariest thing I had ever experienced. But I didn't know that it was going to continue on for months and years, and a really important decade of my life. So the fear started maybe when it had been a year or maybe 2 years
Hmm.
or 3 years. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm still dealing with this. I'm still doing the hamster wheel of doctor, physical therapy, home exercise program, back through the circle again. So yeah, it wasn't initially as frightening as it was just annoying, I think.
Hmm. So when you're going through this cycle of, which I can really relate to, doctor's appointment, physical therapy appointment, taking the medications, doing what I now call the really stupid exercises and stretches in the home exercise program that my therapists gave me. Um, did you ever get incredibly discouraged?
Oh yeah, I mean, many times. I spent I'd say 2 years in a state of incredible discouragement. You know, I had
Hmm.
lost hope for, I'd say I was around 22, 23, 24, maybe those 3 years. Just
Wow.
like, I was at the bottom. I had no even idea what my solution will be. I was lost. Yeah, it was that, and that was what. So starting at 22, it started to get real bad. That was already 6 years into my journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as I told you before we started recording, I was a chronic pain patient for 2.5 years. That was in my mid 30s. That 2.5 years was the longest, most terrible time of my life until something else happened later in my 40s. But it just went on for so long. And I cannot imagine as you're in year 6. And I'm wondering, I'm really curious, what were the, and I'm using air quotes here, experts telling you? What were they telling you about, your recovery, how much longer it would take? Did they ever address that?
Yeah, good questions. So two different occasions really stand out in my mind. They had quite the impact on me. So the first one when I was about 22. This was actually the beginning of the rock bottom.
Mm,
This was also a traumatic event. So I went to the chiropractor and I had an adjustment done. It's called lumbar roll, where they twist your lumbar spine and kind of put their knee on your knee and thrust downward. He wasn't getting the pop that he was seeking, and so he proceeded to do a harder thrust. And I remember that was the second time, no pop. And he said, we're going to try one more time. And he kind of threw all his body weight into mine and he got the pop. And it wasn't a very good pop. I remember after that, my spine was shifting every time I took a step. I was actually going to an Angels baseball game, and I remember I was kind of late and so I was running from the parking lot to the game, and I could just feel my spine shifting, and that was a new feeling. So that same chiropractor, to answer your question, was the one who told me that if I didn't do something, if I didn't change something, that I would probably be in a wheelchair by the time I was 30. So not only did he give me a physical trauma, but he gave me a psychological trauma as well. And so I do credit that physical therapist for uh, the path that I've taken in my life. I
mhm,
had to, at a certain point, I just had to commit my life to healing my back because it was so bad. And so that has led to a lot of good things. So I'm grateful to
mhm,
that chiropractor, but I also want to learn and educate others that you got to be careful about who you give permission to do that stuff like that to your body. The other really standout conversation I had was with my physical therapist around that same time, who, I must have been inquiring with serious questions because it was also around that time. And he told me that our goal was, you know not so much to rehab me at this point. I had been working with him for years, but to just hold off surgery for hopefully about 5 more years, so that because he believes that the technology would be much better by then. And so that also was kind of like a negative thing to hear, like, okay, so I'm a guaranteed surgery candidate, and the goal
Hmm.
is just to put it off a little longer until I'm the ripe age of 27. So that really stood out to me as like, okay, I'm doomed. I'm pretty much doomed. And
Hmm.
those are the two that, yeah, that I remember. I'm 37 now, so this was, going back a little bit of time.
Hmm. Well, okay, so let's go back to like the physical trauma as well as the psychological trauma that you received from that adjustment with the chiropractor. And I really believe that sometimes the psychological trauma is far more painful than physical trauma.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, they both have their, negative sides, but just to have that idea planted in your head, yeah, the psychological, emotional trauma. And even though then going to your physical therapist who, you'd worked with for so long, and to hear those words that, we'll just put it off for 5 years, then hopefully you could have the surgery. So I'm really curious. And, of course, this was before your physical therapy days. But if you knew, if they said that there was something actually structurally in your spine that would have been corrected with surgery, was that ever addressed, or that surgery is the only option because we don't know what else to do?
Yeah, it was the latter. I don't think
Mhm.
there was anything major structurally wrong with my spine. No, I can say that confidently now, except
Mhm.
that it was degenerated. The discs were degenerated at a faster rate than normal
Mhm.
aging would have them degenerate. So, there were some factor that was causing my spine to wear down quickly. And
Mhm.
yeah, all of the above as well. I mean, still today, a lot of healthcare providers just don't know what to do. I'm a physical therapist, and I, went to school, and I'm still in touch with a lot of my classmates who work in traditional outpatient settings. And that, behind closed doors, they'll admit, like, I don't really know what to do with my back pain patients. So I just have them
Mhm.
do these exercises. And that is a real conversation I've had. And the industry, the human society as a whole doesn't largely really know. It's a really tough one. Yeah.
Mhm. But yet it is an epidemic
Yeah,
in our
and it's
society.
actually getting worse. I think it really is getting worse. It received a big uh, source of fuel, this epidemic, from the pandemic, uh,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
of just people getting so used to device time.
Hmm. And sitting and not going to the gym because they were closed, and not doing the
Yeah,
things that we typically do to keep ourselves healthy and moving. I mean, we
yeah,
were basically told, don't move, you stay there and don't go anywhere.
yeah, yeah. Devices and sitting go really well together.
Yes, they do. I actually have, a saying that sitting is evil. It is just evil.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so is a sedentary lifestyle.
yeah. I wouldn't disagree.
Mhm. Okay, so now tell us how you managed to finally, did you have one of those what I call mental head smacking moments? How did you turn this ship around?
Yeah, the moment was when I was 24, and I had been unable to surf, which is and was my passion. Even more so back then. I was unable to participate in my passion, as a young 20 something, for 2 years. I hadn't really been able to surf. So I'm laying on my bedroom floor in Huntington Beach. That's I lived in Huntington specifically so I could surf, and just missing out on life. And the realization I had was, I guess this was two separate instances, but I realized that uh, I had neck pain, I had bilateral knee pain, I had my back pain, and I remember just feeling like bite was off, all simultaneously. And that was what led me to the realization that I didn't only have a back problem.
Mhm.
Whatever was wrong with my body was a whole body issue.
Mhm.
And so that's when I started looking at the body totally differently, and not just treating my back or seeking treatment for my back, which
Mhm.
meant I pretty much had to stop going to the American medical system because that's how they look at the body. And so
Mhm.
the other instance was that I had to, uh, since I couldn't rely on that anymore, I had to take responsibility. And that is what I give credit to me actually climbing out of this downward spiral of back pain, was the moment that I said, I am going to heal my back. I'm going to stop looking for my guru. I'm going to stop looking for the person that's going to fix me. I'm going to become that person through education. That was the turning point.
Bravo. I'm really curious if when you made that decision, did you share your intention with your physical therapist, the one who was working with you, or your physicians, or did you just stop going?
Uh, yeah, I did. I had developed a really good relationship with him, even though, he basically told me my best case scenario was back surgery.
Mhm.
I really respected this guy. He was the best, and I had
Mhm.
really good insurance. So I was able to find the
Mhm.
best PT because I had
Mhm.
so many years of opportunity and a really good insurance. So um, he was fantastic. He worked with the professional surfers who I looked up to. So I looked up
Mhm.
to him, and I used him as a mentor. Like
Mhm.
I remember asking him the question, "Who knows the body better than anyone else?"
Mhm.
And his bias was a physical therapist. So that actually guided me. I had already applied and gotten accepted into a master's in kinesiology program in San Diego State. And when he
Mhm.
gave me that answer, he actually talked me out of it. And I dropped out before I ever started that master's in kinesiology, and I applied to physical therapy school. So,
Mhm.
yep, I shared with him, and I shared with my journal. I have it written down the day that I said I'm committing my life to healing my own back, and yeah, that was definitely a significant moment for me.
Mm. Amazing. I had that same mental head smacking moment myself when I realized I had to fix this. It was my responsibility because what the path I was on was just making me worse. And I did fire my entire medical team, much to their chagrin, because they kept telling me, you need us, you're going to get hurt, you're going to be injured. And I'm like, oh, that ship has already sailed. But it actually came when one of my doctors told me that I would never be able to do my laundry and my grocery shopping all in the same day because the arthritis in my spine was so severe, I would end up being bedridden.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I just looked at her and I was like, it didn't compute. It was almost like she was speaking a foreign language. And I looked at her and I says, you don't understand. I'm planning on going back to ballet class. And she
Yeah.
laughed in my face and said, no, you don't understand. You are a chronic pain patient. You will always be a chronic pain patient. You will never have the life that you had before, the life that you want. And even if you could do ballet, you're way too old. I was 36. And physical therapy school, she knew that was one of my goals. She says, even if you could do the work and you can't because you're way too broken and injured, you're way too old to go back to school.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bummer that those kind of uh, like statements of doom are delivered from people in a position of power to
Mm-hmm.
people seeking help. But that's maybe all they know. Maybe
Yeah.
they haven't been exposed to enough stories that are outside of the system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think about that sometimes. What if I had accepted that and said, okay, this is going to be my life? Oh, and she even said, but don't worry, we're going to take care of you. And I thought, I don't like the sound of that.
That sounds
Um,
like the when people get brought into like a nursing home. Don't worry, we're going to take care of you.
And it's like, oh yeah, what could possibly go wrong with that? Right. But it's interesting. That was actually 30 years ago. And when I look
Wow.
back at this point in my life, I'm doing martial arts, I'm still doing ballet, I'm taking pole classes, pole dancing. If I had listened and really taken that label and, taken it to heart, what would my life be like right now? What would your life be like if you had just said, okay, this is it? So I think it's a really important message I want the audience to understand is don't let other people put labels on you. I don't care if they're the experts. I don't care if they've got MD or whatever behind their name. You have got to take personal responsibility for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And those statements are going to happen. And the best thing we can do with them is take them as motivation. You know, we are unfortunately in a position where we're in, there's something called white coat syndrome when we're in a doctor's office and we're in their environment and they have the education. It is a position of power for them, and it can feel like the things that they say are written in stone, and they really stick with us. Like, I still remember these conversations, right? But we have to remember that they're just people too. Really,
Mm-hmm.
they're just people
Mm-hmm.
just like us, and they just went to school a little longer, and they make mistakes too, and they have beliefs that you actually may be able to have a completely different belief than them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. Yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing, and nobody knows your body and yourself the way you do.
Yes, yeah, that's one of the central tenets of what we teach
Mhm.
in the program is, listen to your body, because you're the only one that can feel it. And even the best
Mhm.
doctor in the world cannot feel what you feel. So you have infinite more insight into what your body's telling you and how to listen to it and how to communicate with it through how you use it.
Mhm.
They have none of that. They just
Mhm.
have imaging and clinical experience and the education that they've received.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
the
And
feelings are
the
much more valuable.
absolutely. And I think people get a little bit, well, they get intimidated, but not only that, when you're in pain and you're scared and you're hurting, you just want somebody to make it go away and make it, just please fix it. But when you can take that power back and just take control of your own healing, that is so powerful.
Yeah, it's the ultimate. Yeah. Yeah, it feels it's to go back to like the mental impact. The mental pain is worse than the physical pain, and when you realize that you have control over it and you're able to manage it, and if something were to go wrong, you know what to do. You have the tools
Mhm.
in your toolbox. That really helps with the
Mhm.
mental, the
Mhm.
psychological
Oh,
side.
absolutely. So tell us about your program, how you, discovered the solution to this chronic back pain problem. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so the program is it's a movement retraining program. So we help people to just develop a healthier relationship with their core, a stronger core connection, and help them to integrate that into moving through life. So it's not really a gym program that teaches you how to do better in the gym. It teaches you how to do better in those other 23 hours of the day, where you're doing like what you were talking about earlier, the dishes or laundry and stuff, and to be able to do those things in a healthier way, because uh, I believe that the amount of time that you're spending doing non-high intensity stuff actually has a larger impact on you, just because we're spending most of our lives doing kind of the mundane, walking, sitting, and this is the time when it's important to have a healthy relationship with your body.
Mhm.
And the gym is also important. We use exercises in the program, uh, so it is kind of like a gym type setting for training, for
Mhm.
learning the feelings that we develop of core connection. And so how did I discover it? It was a big, huge melting pot of exposure to lots of different things. My biggest influences is Vladimir Yanda, who coined the term cross posture syndrome. So I just really resonated with the predictable pattern of muscle imbalances that he teaches about, tight hip flexors, tight upper traps, weak inhibited abdominals and glutes. Like, it really resonated with me, and it seems to resonate with a lot of other people too. So that was, for me, it was important and critical to understand the cause of the problem before I could solve the problem. And so, okay, that really connects the dots for me in my realization that it's a full body problem. It's not just I have a broken piece in my lumbar spine. I used to think that, like, oh, maybe I could just get one adjustment from one chiropractor and I'd be fixed. No, this is a big, long-standing issue. And so we do take a long-term approach where we seek slow, gradual improvement, because if something can, if you can get an overnight solution, if it can come quickly, it can go away quickly. So we're seeking that low and slow progress. So that was the beginning, was Vladimir Yanda. Then he has some disciples who all come, he's from Prague. He's passed away now, but his disciples, also from Prague, they started just researching how humans develop, infant development, baby development, and I was exposed to that. It's called dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. I'm not sure what's going on with it now, but at the time it was for healthcare professionals. And so I exposed myself to that, and I went to physical therapy school and all kinds of other, yoga has been a huge influence on me. So the program is a melting pot, and the foundation is restoring muscular balance in the body, developing a healthy core connection. We model the beginning of the program after human development. So we learn how to develop a strong core in the same way that a baby does. And then we get up off the ground and we accelerate the development of a baby a lot faster. We smash all this into 3 months rather than 4 years. And we integrate that core connection into all the functional movements of life.
That's exactly what I wanted to highlight when you were talking about the training, and it's almost like a gym-like setting, but it carries on into the activities of daily living, because it's not about going to the gym 3 times a week. It is what you're doing in the rest of the time. Yeah. And you can actually work your core and, your flexibility as you're emptying the dishwasher,
Yes.
doing the dishes, the laundry, just, even vacuuming, which was always told you can't vacuum, not a vacuum cleaner, it's going to kill you, those types of things. But it's amazing how much you can reinforce the patterns that you teach your clients and reinforce them as they go through their activities of daily living, even the grocery store, putting away their groceries, those types of things. Yeah. And I want you to talk a little bit more, just to explain to the audience a little bit more about the core muscles and the core connection, because when people think or they hear the word core, they automatically think abdominals. Oh, my abdominals aren't strong enough, but it's a lot deeper than that. And if you can explain that, I'd love it.
Yeah, so the core is a synergy of muscle groups that surround your torso, right? So it's not just the front, it's the sides and the back too. You could include the glutes in the core. You can include any of the muscles of the hips and shoulders. You can, the core is not just a muscle or even one group of muscles. It is, think about the core of an apple, right? It goes from top to bottom. It's not just where the seeds are. And so what we want is for the core to have stability so that our arms and legs which are levers that pull on the core, have a stable foundation to pull from. And if the core is not stable, then those levers are going to be yanking on, 33 vertebrae that are potentially going to move and get jolted in response. And if that's happening, which does a lot, that creates excessive wear and tear. So we actually don't single out, we don't even talk about really the name of muscles in the program. We do say glutes. That would be the only name that we really use in the program, because if you really think about it, an infant and a baby, but they learn perfect healthy movement. If they have a normal developed childhood, by the age of 4, they have perfect posture and healthy movement. And they did all of that without learning what a muscle is or what the names are or how to contract it. It happened organically. And so we really just try to cut out all the minutia. They could try to cut out all the complicating stuff and keep it really simple. We get down on the floor. We connect to the floor with these support points that we are mimicking how a baby pushes away from the floor, and they develop their core muscles. And so, yeah, I know you asked me to talk about the muscles individually, but I have found that, if you want to, one of the things that I had a problem with in physical therapy school was it was so zoomed in. It was like we were trying to understand. It was like we were trying to see the forest from the trees. And I found it to be make things too complex. And I really have always found it easier to understand the problem and the solution just by zooming out a lot. And so, yeah. But one more thing I will say about the core muscles is that we are specifically focused on the deeper muscles of the core, the ones that are closer to the spine, because they have a much larger influence on the stability of the spine if you're closer to it, right? And the shape of these muscles are such that their design is not to move the body, but to just kind of squeeze and hug the spine. And you can think of a corset brace. It's just, you just put it on tight and it feels like you're getting a nice hug, and it stabilizes you. And so we do focus on the deeper muscles of the core. There's a whole bunch of them. I can name them for you, but like I said, it's of zero importance, because you can just ask any 4-year-old to tell you the names of the deep core and they don't know them, but they have perfect movement. So, and the way that we target the deep core muscles is through low intensity stuff, which is ironic. I can get into a whole lot about that, but yeah, people tend to want to go real hard because we're so motivated to want to get better, that if we try harder, that we will gain more benefit. But those tend to activate the superficial muscles, the 6-pack abs. Those are movement muscles, not stability muscles. And so that's why, to tie back to what you said earlier, is it's not the gym exercises that are actually as important as the stuff that we're doing outside of the gym, just moving through life. And we're using those deeper muscles, or we should be moving them a lot more with something like vacuuming.
Perfect. Was exactly what I wanted you to target, were the deep core muscles. Didn't care about the names, but that's to stabilize the spine, because a lot of people don't understand that. And I even had one of my ballet teachers, who was actually quite brilliant, would always talk about like the upper third and the core of the upper third. And it's like, of course, the core goes all the way through us. Oh, yeah. It's not just, people just think it's the abdominals or that area. And no, and I love the analogy with the baby, because I tell that to my clients a lot, that, when we were babies, we knew how to move. Nobody gave us little baby barbells and said, go ahead and do these 10 reps, and then put one hand here, push your pelvis this way, and then you're going to be able to roll over in your crib. We figured it out. And
Yeah.
that's actually how I was able to get rid of my back pain. Was I would get down on the floor every day and try
Yeah.
and figure out what was easy, what was hard, what made me feel better, what made me feel worse. Boom.
Yeah. I was asked once on a podcast that I thought it was a really good question. Without knowing anything that we teach in the program, it was a really hard question to answer. And he said, what's one thing that everybody could do in their lives that would just help them, help their bodies help them with back pain, just help them get out of back pain if they have it? And I think naturally walking would be a great answer, but for some people, even walking hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So what I said was just get down on the floor every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the floor is a really important tool for core development. And I think that's just proven by looking at a child.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can hear a choir of angels begin to sing because I just love the getting down on the floor. I tell people that all the time. If it's one thing, just get down on the floor every single day as an anti-aging, mechanism as well. Because if you can't get down on the floor, you're afraid of it.
Yeah.
And we're afraid of falling, it's just get down on the floor and get back up again every single day. If you can't do it, if you have to hang on to sturdy furniture at first, it'll get easier and easier. But to me, that is the absolute anti-aging as well as health and wellness.
I think so. We should start a movement.
I know we really should. The floor is your friend. Everybody get down on the floor. Yeah.
If you said what could like America do, or what could, a lot of these first world countries do that would just help their general health, I say get rid of your couch.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone just got rid of their couch, oh my gosh, I feel like so many different things would get better.
So, and we'd be a happier society as well, I think. And if you can't see my whole girl cave, but if you could, there are balls everywhere. I have several different sizes and colors. I've got, the TheraBalls. It's just, I never even sit in a chair unless I'm doing a recording, which I tried doing a ball and it just didn't work. It was,
we brought ours down to Mexico.
Did you? Yep, absolutely.
My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I couldn't keep it blown up in the car, so I have to go to a gas station and blow it up, but I brought it.
Next time, I'll give you a little hint here. I have a handy dandy two-way riverboat pump. And I can't remember where I got it from. I think I might have gotten it online years and years ago. But even here in Colorado, it sounds really crazy, but we do have a lot of boat shops and maritime shops, but you can get one. Look for a double action riverboat pump. They are amazing.
All right. Yeah, I will.
They're very portable. So, let me see, where are we going with this? I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we already kind of touched base with why sometimes the medical system doesn't work so well with back pain. And then I want you to, if you can touch on that a little bit, and then talk about the back pain spiral, or what I would refer to like as the pain spasm cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough question for me to answer. I think it was easier back in the day when I was a little more naive to explain why the medical system isn't very good at back pain. And I think back then I would have just said that, they don't understand, they don't look at the body as a whole. And that might be true, but I think that ultimately they are doing the best they can. I think that all the doctors that we encounter went through a medical program that taught them as much as they could, right? And packed it all in, and they learned as much as they could. And so they have good intentions for the most part. But I think it is a system issue And I think that it's hard, and it's hard to have a business where, especially even like with insurance, like how do you bill insurance for like whole body? You know,
Mhm.
the insurance
Mhm.
system is based on elbow. There's a code, right?
Mhm.
For even a fractured elbow, there'd be probably 15 different codes
Mhm.
depending on the type of the fracture. And so they have to, there, people are like funneled into this way of looking at the body and treating the body in parts.
Mhm.
And I think that that's one of the things that the back doesn't like. I don't think the back
Mhm.
likes separating the body into parts. I think the spine is happiest and healthiest when it's working together with the next joint above and below, and then so on, all the way up and down the chain.
Mhm.
So I think it's a system problem. I think the people are generally good, and it just doesn't work for the way, for the money. It doesn't work for the documentation, and I
Mhm.
don't see it being a easy problem to solve. I
Mhm.
really do think that you gotta go towards education and away from treatment in order
Mhm.
to actually successfully get out of back pain.
That was a really great answer. And I believe a lot of times that the physician's hands are tied
Yeah,
based
yeah,
on the constraints that they have to work under. It's not like it was, when I was a brand new respiratory therapist. I mean, and I could see as I went through my medical career how those constraints got tighter and tighter. And I recently interviewed a physician, I think she was family practice, who was in the process of retiring, and she's told me how difficult it is to even just to function as a physician.
yeah, yeah. It's not easy on them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're
So
really
all
good
that.
at some things. I know that's in wide agreement. We're really good at some things, and we can't be the best at everything. And back pain is probably among the worst.
Yeah.
And it precisely because I believe it's not something you can just spot treat.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's what we're good
Right.
at. We're good at spot treating.
So do you work with people in person and online?
I don't really see people in person anymore.
Oh.
I did all the way up until my son was born, and now he's the person I see in person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how can people find you? How can they get a hold of you? I want you to be able to give us, share the links. They're of course going to be in the show notes, but I really like for the guest to be able to articulate. It just has a little bit more of a personal type of connection with the audience.
Yeah, definitely. So I've put myself out there as much as possible with providing education about what I believe to be the root cause of back pain, and also just all sorts of different topics that have been asked of me over the years. I've been doing this since 2016 is when I started core balance training.
Mhm.
2017 is when I really started getting clients. So there's a lot out there. I would suggest the YouTube channel, Core Balance Training,
Mhm.
and you can just search that on YouTube. Or if you want to get, cut to the chase and get straight to the meat of it, this one video in particular I call the masterclass is 15 minutes long, and it explains exactly what I, with illustrations, um, believe to be the root cause and what I believe to be the solution. And they can find that at corebalancetraining.com/masterclass. So that would be the most valuable thing. And then, yeah, we also have Instagram at Core
Mhm.
Balance Training, and probably some other things too. So,
Okay, I'm going to include that one, that link in the notes to the masterclass one, because I think that's really important. And
yeah,
once
I'd
people,
say that's the most valuable thing. That if you only watched one thing, I think that would be it.
well, and once people experience it or get a taste of what you're talking about, I think then it's a good way to launch them into maybe more of the videos and more into your program.
Yeah, and there is a free trial of the program. It's
Mhm.
a 7-day trial. So I tell people even just that, if you just take the free trial and then get on with your life, I think it would have a major impact.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty eye-opening for that
Mhm.
core connection I was talking about.
And it's a lot simpler than people think it is.
Oh yeah,
It's complex, but it's
it's too
not.
simple for some people. They're
Really.
like, I need complexity, and I'm like, put the complexity into your focus. Just focus really, really hard, and
Mhm.
that is what's going to give you the most bang for your buck, which is just tuning in to that feeling in your
Mhm.
core as we do this push away. And then if you can get super familiar with that, you'll have a much better time integrating that connection into other things. And that is the key to that long-term or permanent solution, is the integration.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, it has been an honor to have you on the show. I have loved our conversation, and I have to just let the audience know that you have taken time away from your vacation to be here on the show today. So I really appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you so much, Cheryl. It was a fun time, and I appreciate all your questions there. It was a really great interview.
Oh,
Thank you.
excellent. Do you have any final pearl of wisdom to drop on the audience before we sign off?
Educate yourself. Yeah, so that's what I believe in. And the biggest thing is, as a solution to back pain, is education. Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Cheryl.
And everybody, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it as well. And remember that knowledge is power, and that you can take your power back by education. And do go to Ryan's website, check out the YouTube videos. I did listen to one this morning. I watched it, and it's great. He's got some amazing information. And remember, you do not have to live with back pain, and let's make it a thing of the past. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.